Today is February 11, 2022, and this is the SNILD JGO committee this afternoon. And we will be having a conversation this afternoon with the Pacific Island Development Bank CNMI representative sitting on the board of directors for the bank, former Lieutenant Governor Diego Benavente. He will be our guest this afternoon with the committee. I would like to call this meeting to order. On agenda item number 2, under the SNILD JGO rules, Section 7, Section 5C, we do have enough members to establish a quorum. Also online that will be joining us is Representative Denita Yangtimay, Representative Tina Sablan, and other members that are excused this afternoon would be Representative JP Sablan, Representative BJ Atto, and Representative Lipon might also be joining us in a few minutes. If he doesn't make it, then he's also excused for this afternoon. May I hear a motion for the adoption of the agenda this afternoon? Yes. Do I hear a second? It has been moved and seconded, and the agenda for this afternoon is officially adopted. We are now on to item number 4 under public comments. If there's anyone out there in the area to make a public comment with this meeting this afternoon, you may do so. I don't see anybody right now, so the public comment section is officially closed. We are also live on Facebook and YouTube channels. We thank the audience, the viewing public, for joining us this afternoon with this meeting. Before we have a open floor for the comments of Mr. Diego Benavente this afternoon, Mr. Benavente, it's standard procedure for this committee to administer the oath. So if you would please raise your right hand, and the LA would administer the oath. Thank you.
Mr. Diego Benavente, you do solemnly swear, under the penalty of perjury, that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Masi. Also joining us this afternoon to assist us with our meeting is LA Devon Macaranas, Legal Counsel Brendan Lady, Sergeant at Arms Ben Terlahi, Juan Santos, and also Delbert Camacho, our IT guy. Thank you very much for helping us out this afternoon. Mr. Benavente, the floor is open for you if you would like to make a brief remarks before the committee, before we open up for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and buenas, and good afternoon to you and the members of the JGO committee. Do you want me to maybe do a brief history on the bank itself? Okay. So the Pacific Islands Development Bank was initiated by the Association of Pacific Islands Legislature back in 1987. It officially opened as a bank with an office in Guam in 1991. During a period of several years, the bank, with an office in Guam and a president, one staffer, a president of the bank, we're trying to get the member entities that had committed, the APIL entities that had committed to being a part of this bank, and that commitment was for each entity to contribute a total of $1 million to establish the Pacific Islands Development Bank. In the first year, I believe the FSM State of Yap and the Republic of Palau came out and contributed their full $1 million. The third member was the FSM State of Pohnpei, and then the CNMI, I believe, in the 90s, finally made its full contribution of $1 million. Since then, Guam, after the CNMI, made its full contribution of $1 million. Kosrae and Chuk at the time provided their first initial $250,000 and therefore became members, officially members of the bank. It's been taken long for the state of Kosrae for obvious reasons, but their contribution is nearly completed. It's at this point over 900,000. Chuk actually, after it made its first $250,000 contribution, has failed to infuse any more funds into this contribution. And several years ago, the members of the Board of Governors for the PIDB actually suspended its membership in the bank. Several years ago, the Republic of the Marshalls, a member of APIL, made its first contribution and became a full-fledged member of PIDB. They actually came in and immediately, because of the success of PIDB in the Republic of the Marshalls, contributed another $1 million for a total of just below $2 million at this time. The bank also allowed or proposed to allow associate members. This will be members who would be able to participate in the bank, but will not be voting members in the Board of Governors or the Board of Elections. Since then, Kwajalein Atoll Development Authority out of the Marshalls came in as an associate member with a $1 million contribution, but that $1 million was strictly for housing loans, which the bank is currently overseeing. For several years after we started loaning or opening up for loans in the bank, we were very successful. The bank was doing really well, but since the recent events of the COVID, as with any jurisdiction, most of the clients were struggling to make their payments. And so the bank actually at this point, we had to even suspend lending just a few months ago because of cash flow issue. In our recent Board of Directors meeting, just last month, we've been able to lift that suspension, and we are now allowing both commercial loans and mortgage loans at this time. So another information of the bank is that it's, as I said, it's in Guam as a nonprofit institution. We have a president CEO. She is Miss Lindsay Timorine. We also have in the bank administrative staff or manager of administration, and then a office assistant. So it's a 3-staff office at this time. In the past, we actually had a vice president and even a loan officer. But because of the slow lending program, we're now at three individuals in the management office. The bank is owned by currently 8 members of APIL, which will be the CNMI, Guam, Republic of Palau, Republic of the Marshalls, and the 4 FSM states, Yap, Chuk, Kosrae, and Pohnpei. There are, except for the suspension of Chuk's participation, the bank is actually run by the Board of Governors, two members of the Board of Governors from each jurisdiction, one coming from the administration of that particular entity, and then one from the legislative branch. So in our case, Governor Torres himself sits in the Board of Governors, and he's actually the current chairman of the Board of Governors. From the legislature side, it's Representative J.P. Sablon. And the articles calls for the two-member Board of Governors to appoint a board of directors, and so here I am.
Thank you for that brief introduction of the organization of the bank. And we will move forward with the meeting this afternoon. And any members that would like to ask questions will go around, and also those that are joining us online with the other representatives. Anybody? Recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Chair, and Mr. Benavente, welcome. I just have one quick question here. How transparent is the PIDB, and what and when was the last time PIDB made a contribution to the cinema?
If you refer to the question of contribution, plus would be the loans that we issue here in the CNMI. We currently have several housing loans, as well as commercial loans, and even some consumer loans. When for several years we had that lending program, which is a personal loan basically. While we have several of those loans that have since been paid off, we do still have outstanding loans, again, in commercial, mortgage or home loans, as well as consumer loans.
Just one quick one. Also, for public purpose, like community efforts, has the PIDB done anything for the public since the inception of 1989?
It's a nonprofit organization, and the articles and the bylaws now calls for any funds that comes in through the repayment, and of course through the generation of fees and interest, actually goes back to relending. But there were times, as I said, where the bank was doing so well that we were making profit, and not necessarily for to keep, but to relend. That even though for many years we were referred to, the PIDB was referred to as the child of APIL, we for several years actually, this particular child had made financial support during APIL events over the years. And so those are one of the limited ways in which we can contribute, instead of taking those funds and relending it back out, which is the purpose of the bank and its mission. We also, during those times when the bank was doing well, we actually offered scholarship programs for our students out of the Commonwealth, and to all its membership, for those that were going into either banking major or financial. So no, we don't contribute to the community directly, but through the scholarship program, as well as supporting APIL events, is where we've actually used some of those money. And for a couple of years also, the bank has supported its the Micronesian Conservation Trust organization, which is a body that is in Pohnpei right now, that actually advocates for the protection of our resources and the environment. And those were minimal contributions.
Thank you, Chair. I yield for now.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Recognize Representative Karina Magofnia.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and welcome, Mr. Benavente. Thank you for taking the time to come up and give us an update. My first question is PIDB FDIC?
I'm sorry? No,
Yeah.
it's not.
It's not an FDIC, okay. And as I'm reviewing the 2020 annual report, I just have some clarifying questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I see that there are a total of 13 loans under the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and of the 13, I was wondering if you would know, um, uh, if you would know how many of that is residential and how many is commercial.
So I have in my list here right now, outstanding,
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 residential loans, and 1, 2, 3, 2 commercial loans.
And would you happen to know what the values are respectively?
Um, I can only provide, given the sensitiveness of clients as far as information, I can only provide you with the amounts. But
Oh, to clarify, I'm not asking for details. I just
Right.
wanted to know, like,
Sure.
overall, what would be, how much is for residential and how much is commercial?
I would need to do the add ups for this, but it's the loan total. Wow. I actually have a report that I will be able to provide the members because I'd have to sit here and add this
Okay,
up. But
that would be great. Is that
yeah.
as of when?
as of December
31st?
31st.
Got it. Okay. If you could provide us the report,
Sure.
that would be
I
great.
can leave this document here.
Okay. And then moving along, under delinquent loans to capital ratios by shareholder, and I don't know how, obviously this report is for 2020, so I don't know what your updated report shows, but it shows that there are 4 delinquent loans totaling $388,000, 692 and 14 cents. And I was curious to know, out of the 4 delinquent loans, how many were residential and how many were commercial?
I do believe, but again, we'll be able to look through this
Okay.
document. But I do believe that the reason for the large amount is that there is one residential loan that actually contributed to that large amount, and then the rest would be a smaller consumer loans,
Okay. Consumer loans and not commercial?
not commercial, but
Also
consumer
consumer as in a personal loan?
personal loans. Yes.
Okay, so would the consumer fall under residential?
No, it's 3
Is it a
different. Yeah.
completely separate?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then the reason for these delinquencies is it prior to COVID or after COVID?
There are current loans that were delinquent after COVID, but as with many banking institutions, there were some loans that were delinquent prior.
Prior.
Um, for a period of time when our president CEO, who actually almost single-handedly increased or built the Pacific Islands Development Bank, when this individual decided to run for office for the FSM Congress, we had a transition period of about 2, maybe 3 years. And during that period, because of the fact that the priorities, if you will, or the attention that was needed to follow up with some of these loans, we kind of, that's where we started having some issues. I can say now that just as recent as last month, the Board of Governors finally hired a permanent president CEO who is focused on bringing the bank back to where it should be. But so there, at one time our delinquency ratio was so low, it was we were doing really well. But Again, as with the economies throughout, whether it's here with the typhoons or in Palau with the typhoons, we had some challenges with some of the loans. And so some of those delinquents were definitely prior to COVID.
Got it. And so, can you help us understand the process of when a loan is delinquent? What takes place, and how do we recover, collect on those delinquents?
So for the purpose of audit, here is a definition for delinquent that we have to comply with. It's basically whether it's 90-day delinquent, 120-day delinquent, and so it's listed as a delinquent loan. We also go beyond that, where we charge off loans. And we do have, even within the CNMI, we have had loans that we had to charge off. Basically, they just stopped making payments. We had to go to the attorneys, and we actually have loans that have been referred to the attorneys. And so when we charge those loans off, the attorneys will then start collecting. And you'll be able to see that we've actually recovered some of those charged off or delinquent or unpaid loans.
At what point is it considered charged off? What's the length of time?
So the board meets quarterly and reviews the loan status. And that's a good question, and I'd have to come back and
Okay.
give you that answer. But there is, at some point.
Right.
We are a development bank that is truly different from a commercial bank where, we're not looking at making a lot of money here. We're looking at providing financial support to the different communities. So we go out of our way. The bank has always gone out of its way to work with a client, whether it's to restructure the loan so they can start making repayments. Or we give them a chance. So it's really after we've exhausted all the efforts that when we feel we need to charge off the loan and refer it to our attorneys.
Okay, but I'm sure there will be a process, right? Because there will
Yes.
have to be a period of time where you say, yeah, at
Yes.
some point you gotta have to cut it off
Yes.
and then charge off. And so as of December 31st, 2021, would you happen to have the total amount that has been charged off against
Yes,
the
we do.
bank
Yes.
for us? Okay. So you will provide that to us
Yes.
later?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Could you just help me understand what does a non-performing loans to capital ratios by shareholder mean?
Ooh. Man, I'd have to
Okay,
come back with
not a
that.
problem. Okay. And that's pretty much it for me for right now. I yield, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Corina. Do we have any representatives online that would like to ask a question before I start to ask my questions? Okay. Go ahead, Representative Tina Sablan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to join online, and welcome, Mr. Beneventi. I'm curious to know, I guess just right off the bat, is the PIDB incorporated in any of the jurisdictions under the laws of those jurisdictions?
I believe so. I mean, I'd have to confirm that, but I do know that we have, and I think at this point we are trying to process our renewal with Commerce. So yes, we're incorporated in Guam, but we would definitely have to incorporate in those jurisdictions where we do business. So that would include all of its membership.
Okay, so PIDB is incorporated in the CNMI as a nonprofit corporation?
Not sure if that's what it's called, or if it's just a business license or an opportunity to do business here. So I'd have to I'd have to find that, I'll get you that respond at a later time.
I see. Okay, but you did say earlier that PIDB operates as a nonprofit, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And I guess I'm just curious if PIDB also then provides reports that, would be compliant with the requirements of nonprofit organizations, either in our jurisdiction or in the other jurisdiction.
I believe so.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I believe so.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I didn't hear his response.
Okay, he responded, I believe so. Were you able to hear that?
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I heard that part. Thank you. And then I guess just following up on Representative Magofnia's questions about the delinquency rates of your loan portfolio, I'm curious about the success stories. I did take note of, and you mentioned the mission of PIDB is to promote the economic and social development of member countries, and to promote economic cooperation. And I guess I'm just wondering, since 1987, what are the success stories that PIDB can share, can point to, that would show that PIDB is meeting its mission?
The fact that we do have loans throughout our communities, I think, in a way, contributes to that. And it's really not limited to commercial loans, although members in the past, the Board of Governors as well as the Board of Directors have argued the need of whether to end our housing program or our consumer or personal loan program and just concentrate on commercial. We felt that there are jurisdictions where a $5,000 consumer or personal loan really translates to commercial activities. When a fisherman buys a fishing gear and starts fishing and selling its product in smaller island communities where our members, where some of our members actually have. And so there are companies that we feel are vital part in its service to different communities that we have helped funded. We have actually helped funded hotels in the different regions, FSM State of Yap and FSM State of Pohnpei. So, a contribution towards the tourism industry, for example. So while we're small and can't really talk about a major impact, I believe that, we continue to provide those, continue to basically see that our mission and objectives are followed in our different membership.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I guess I would be more interested in seeing, where these success stories are actually quantified, right? Like if there is data that PIDB can provide all of the member jurisdictions, like you mentioned, there are companies, there are hotels, but I think it would be both interesting and encouraging for all of the members to have a better understanding of whatever the impact actually might be of PIDB, if that can be quantified, right? So number of businesses that are successful and what types of industries and how many jobs created and how many homes have been built, like that sort of thing, right? How many microloans or how many scholarships and students that finish school, anything like that, any data like that, I think would be really helpful because the annual report doesn't really paint that picture. And then, of course, there's the financial statements, and I guess I'd be more interested I'm interested in all of that, but I think I'm most interested in understanding the stories and the actual impact of PIDB on the economic and social development of our island. So I'd like to suggest that to you, Mr. Beneventi, and to bring that back to the board and to the management of PIDB to consider providing reports like that with data that would tell that story. Thank you. I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Sablon. Any other members online that would
May
like
I
to ask a
just-
question?
May I just respond real quickly?
Just a moment, please. No other member? Go ahead. Mr. Beneventi, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I do want to say, Congresswoman, that I totally agree with you. And for some reason, that really hasn't, is an issue that we've thought about. But we continue to make efforts for more contribution. For example, we have limited funding right now, and we're hoping that other jurisdictions, including the CNMI, and I've actually asked the governor if there are any available funds in which we can contribute so that we can open our loans up for more of the borrowers in the CNMI. And I think that having that, the actual economic impact and the studies would that we can show just what kind of contribution it has made not just in the CNMI, but in the jurisdictions throughout, that'll help our efforts in our capitalization, because one of our priorities continues to be increasing our capital contributions from each member entity so that we can open our more loans for those that need it. So I thank you for that recommendation, and I certainly will take that to the management.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Beneventi. So now we have come full circle, and I do have some questions to address to you regarding the bank's operation. Thank you also for sharing with us the history of the organization of the bank, considered as the child of APIL. That's good to know. And I also have thoroughly read the annual report, which is the latest 2020, and I do have a lot of financial questions. So let's move right along on this. Now, earlier you had mentioned that there is a scholarship program prior that was offered by the banking institution for citizens of member states, primarily in banking and financial careers. I am so happy to hear that. So my question to you is that a program that's going to continue on, or is the bank considering of bringing it back again into offering scholarships, for our citizens throughout the region?
Thank you. I know that, as the owners and the representatives to the bank, being the elected leaders, mostly anyways, are elected leaders of these communities, I know that those are important, and that we hope to see the bank recover. We are very, very hopeful with the new management in place now. And we certainly would like to see us get to that point where our cash flow allows us to, continue to support the APIL, as well as offer the scholarships in the different regions.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. Furthermore, you did mention earlier about the development bank providing financial support for the community. So I'm curious to know, knowing that there's other lending institutions within our Commonwealth, for example, I know that other banks that are FDIC insured, they offer commercial loans, right? We also have CDA, now called CEDA, that also provides personal or commercial business loans as well. I'm wondering if PIDB ever paid off any commercial or personal loans here in the Commonwealth for applicants under the PIDB bank products.
One more time, please, in the question.
For example, if somebody applied for a loan through PIDB for commercial or personal, and they do have an existing liability here, for example, under CDA, now CEDA, has there been a situation where PIDB funds were used to pay off the note with CDA, now CEDA, or any banking institution here in the Commonwealth?
I believe so. I think that we've had applicants, for example, who would apply so that they could pay off an existing loan, whether it's with CDA or CEDA or with other commercial banks, pay that off, and then they in turn pay us. And we have done that in the past, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you can get back to us on a much more firm information on that. And the reason why I ask for that, because it's never a good thing when a person or business overextended.
Right.
right? Their delinquency rate, ratio of, for example, PIDB or any other financial institution in the Commonwealth will be much more greater and harder to collect from the applicant or from the borrower because they're overextended in their paying ability. So you can please get back to us on that, and maybe a percentage ratio of that particular portfolios. Furthermore, I know you're going to get back to us about your nonprofit organization, whether it's registered under 501c under the IRS, and to also make sure that that the bank itself is legally chartered or organized within the region. Right now, we understand that it is licensed to do business or chartered in Guam, but I don't think it's confirmed yet this afternoon based on your testimony that we do have an official legal record, whether it is also formed legally in the Commonwealth. So please do get back to us on that. The other questions that I have for you, you did mention earlier you have allowed for associate members to become members of the PIDB Bank as non-voting members, and it caught my attention. Kwajalein Atoll had contributed $1 million primarily for housing loans, correct? My question to that is that only restricted to Kwajalein customers, or is that open to any other member citizens to also apply for that particular opportunity?
No, it is definitely restricted to just borrowers from CADA, from Kwajalein.
Okay, so restricted only to
Yes.
Kwajalein borrowers. Okay,
If I
Thank-
may just make another clarification. So the contribution commitment from each member is $1 million. FSM State of Yap had a program where they set aside a little over 400,000 for certain priorities for just Yap. They since turned that into a contribution. So now Yap's contribution, for example, is at 1.4 million. But they also at one time had some money available, and because of the success of PIDB in the region, they offered that funds for PIDB to manage. It's in the amount, if I'm not mistaken, $2 or $3 million. But that fund is strictly for Yap's priorities as well. And
Thank
that's
you.
the same way it works, yes.
Thank you very much for that clarification. If I may ask, how long have you been serving on the board of directors?
Wow. I'm actually one of the longest serving members in PIDB. I once served as the chairman of the board of governors. And even prior to that, I was as a member of the APIL, I chaired the task force on PIDB at the time when they were struggling, so early in the 90s. But as a member of the board of director, oh boy, it's been a while now, maybe more than 10 years.
Thank you. So more than 10 years. Moving right along, in your 2020 annual report, it states that the bank engaged the services of firms to enhance policies, practices, improvements on operations, processes, and procedures. Can you update us on this matter, please?
A lot of those, it will be financial consultants. So it's really management, and it's mostly done on Guam with firms out of Guam that assist the organization in updating its manuals, updating even an application form recently. So it's very limited to that type of services.
Thank you. Now, again, focusing on your latest annual report, it also mentioned that one of the bank's strategic objectives is to expand the scope and scale of services in the islands, which involves hiring of staff outside of Guam to better serve the customers at the local level. eBuy has a bank loan processor hired. My question to you is, does the CNMI have any bank staff to promote this objective in providing banking services within our local CNMI community?
The answer is no, and it's no throughout the other regions. CNMI, as well as some of the other members outside of CADA, have agencies and programs like the SBA who offer this kind of service. So some of our borrowers actually refer to the different offices in their community that would assist them in filling out the applications. The reason why this was necessary in CADA, because they didn't have that ability. And so when our director from CADA actually recommended, we felt that it was necessary, as a mortgage loan is more complicated than just a regular personal loan.
Okay, so for further clarification, if somebody was to borrow money from PIDB and requires some kind of a assistance in packaging their note or their application with PIDB, that these local services provided by, let's say, SBDC or
Right,
CDA
sorry, yeah.
is a collaborative effort, cooperation throughout the region at no other charges to PIDB clients, correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Now, can you describe to this committee what products does the bank offer to date?
As I said earlier, we recently just lifted the moratorium or the lending suspension on housing. So we currently have a commercial loan available at this point. When we lifted the suspension, we felt it because of cash flow situation, we felt that we need to limit it a limited amount for certain jurisdiction, equal all over. And so at this time, we have decided that we will offer as much as 100,000 per entity in this at this point in time. We've also lifted recently the suspension on mortgage loan or housing loans. We still, at this point, are not extending through this suspension, extending consumer loans or personal loans. So those are the three programs.
Thank
Or
you.
two
The three products, okay. Now, the annual report also states that a new loan system was launched in 2020. Can you share with us what is some of the reporting capabilities of this new loan system that you have?
I'm going to go ahead, Madam Chair, and refer this to our
Okay,
president,
you'll get back
CEO.
to us on that?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Now, also in your report, it mentions about the ACH services through Bank of Guam. Can you briefly share what is the service agreement cost for ACH services with Bank of Guam? Or is that also a partnership agreement with no cost to PIDB?
I don't know the answer at this point.
Okay.
I will have to come
We'll,
back.
we'll wait for that answer when
And
you get back.
I'm hoping that the president and the staff are on Facebook watching all this news.
I
and
hope so.
keeping notes.
I hope they're taking notes for you, right?
I didn't realize that. Or if I did, I
Yes.
would have asked them to come
Well,
on.
you are facing committee members,
Right.
with banking and insurance background. So
Right.
a lot of the financial questions are coming
Right.
right through this afternoon. Additionally, it says on your annual report on March 2020 that PIDB entered into an agreement with GITA to participate in the Small Business Credit Initiative. Can you share with this committee if the same agreement has been entered into with CEDA, who also runs the SSBCI here in the CNMI?
We attempted to. I think when we approached, not too long ago, when we approached the CEDA, it was really for the purpose of looking at the possibility of maybe joint funding. This particular applicant was asking for a large amount in which we were not able to, and I didn't think that CEDA was as well. And so we actually started a meeting. Nothing materialized out of that, but that is something that our new president and CEO is focusing on now, which is working with a different development bank region with regards to the possibility of working on loans or some kind of a relationship.
Well, that's good to know. I highly encourage some kind of a revisiting of the initiative so that this, partnership and regional collaboration to provide more working capital for our community. I know that the agreement is $1 million per member state, but we have so much money floating around in the economy provided by the U.S. government or through public funds that actually created this bank.
That's right.
And that is the whole reason why we're having this conversation, because the monies that were used for the members to deposit to become a member of the PIDB, the reality and the fact is it's public funds. It's not private funds. It's not private capital. It's the people's monies. And this is the reason why we are having this conversation this afternoon. I'm going to move forward with my other questions. Now, on your report, it also talks about new goals and action plans being considered by the bank for 2022 to 2024. Do you have an idea what those are that you can share with, with us this afternoon?
No, I don't, and I want to just
Get
clarify.
back to us on that?
Yes,
Okay.
and only because in the past 3 years, which includes the report that you're looking at, we've had different management. It was during this transition period, and so I th- I would like for the new management to maybe set the goals really forward between starting this January or this
Okay,
year.
fair enough. Now, the members pledge for shareholders' capital at $1 million. And just for the record, the CNMI made its last payment on September 30, 2002. I did an Open Government Act. I received a response on October 4th, 2021, requesting for the disbursements of this $1 million to PIDB from the CNMI government. And so that last payment to make it $1 million came in on September 30, 2002, in the amount of $94,229, bringing our CNMI equity share to $1 million as agreed. Can you tell this committee how many shares does the CNMI hold, and what is the value per share?
Okay, I have those information in this package that I'll be leaving with you as well. Madam
Okay.
Chair. But it's basically, what would it be, $1 per share? So the CNMI's share at this time would be 1,000.
1,000 shares, and what is the value per share? It's $1 million equity share contribution. So what is the
Well,
value
that's-
per share?
What is it? If we have
1,000 per
share,
share.
1 million, what is that?
$1,000 per share at
Is it?
1,000
Okay,
shares
okay.
equals $1 million equity hold.
Okay,
Okay,
that's what it
thank you.
is. Yeah.
Now, is PIDB listed on any exchange for retail investors?
I don't know that answer, Madam Chair.
You want to
Have
get
to,
back to us
yeah,
on that?
yeah.
Okay. I do know that Guam and the CNMI pretty much have the same equity shareholdings. So pretty much the ranking with respect to the membership would be 4 and 5, correct? You can agree to that, right?
Sure.
It's the same amount of holding.
Yes.
Okay. And which member has the greatest equity share?
At this point, it's the Marshall Islands,
RMI?
at
Okay.
1.9 million.
And it's not restricted for the CNMI to contribute more, correct?
We welcome it, Madam Chair.
You welcome more money of the
Yes,
people's money,
yes,
right?
Please, yes.
Okay.
And that will go back to the people. Of
To the
course.
people.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what is the current total share value of the bank?
So the total right now is at $9.9 million.
Okay, and that's a cumulative asset total of all the membership, correct?
Yes.
All right, now, and I know you mentioned earlier that it is a nonprofit institution,
Yes.
and you did talk about a financial consultant, I guess, being utilized with respect to he or she, her services. Now, does the bank buy any equities and bonds in the open market? Do you have any financial manager that manages the books of the banks?
We used to, Madam Chair. We in the beginning when YAP's 1 million, Palau's 1 million were deposited in the bank account. We had not begun our loan programs, and so we invested that money through a money manager. So the answer to your question is we used to have, we don't anymore, because the bank made a decision to use all of its assets, its funds, towards lending.
Okay, so if you look at your financial statement and you do have a book value, obviously, I'm wondering where are these currency assets are being kept? I'm sure that the bank would have to want to have a turnover, turn of investment, right? It's not just sitting on the books with zero dividend yield, for example, or interest yield or things like that. I would think that you're probably you're having it in other investment instruments to generate much more money out of the bank
I
portfolio.
believe, and I can confirm that again, but
Okay.
I believe that we don't. I believe that any money that we get as a result of the repayment of those loans is when it builds up, it goes right back out. I think we always have pending applications in the bank throughout our membership, not just the CNMI. And so we actually have a lot of loan applications to consider. We just at this point have very limited funding for that. So no, as the money comes in through those repayments, it's prepared to be relended.
Okay, I mean, you can get back to us on that. For example, you're valued at 9 point some million dollars. It could be that maybe some of that money, whatever is liquid right now could be out there buying a corporate bond, for example, that generates a quarterly payment of interest on the bond itself with a very attractive coupon rate. So that eventually would be considered as a revenue of the Pacific Island Development Bank source. So you can get back to us on that, more clarity from your executive director. Now, on your board of directors, you talk about meeting quarterly, correct?
Yes.
Now, considering the funds pledged by each member are public funds, is the quarterly meeting open to the public? And is there any quarterly shareholders report being sent to the shareholders to inform what has been discussed by the board of directors?
So I, as a board of director, participates in a quarterly meeting. We then report to our two board of governor, which I actually serve under, and then of course the report at the end. I don't believe that we do it quarterly, but I believe that at the end of the year is when we do that. And as far as the question of whether it's open, I participate in a lot of meetings, and we would have open meetings.
You do have open
Yes.
meetings. Do you move it around on a quarterly basis to different
Yes.
jurisdictions?
Yes.
Where's the next meeting at?
Well, another virtual meeting.
Another
Uh,
virtual meeting. Okay,
Because again, because of the restrictions in
I
travel.
got you.
Yeah, we've actually met now for about almost 2 years virtually.
Okay. But when things go back to normal, it's going to be becoming a physical meeting that moves around their jurisdiction,
Yes,
correct?
We alternate.
Okay. Hopefully, we get to see those kind of publications come out so that the people can be informed. Thank you. Let's see. Now, I do have, I know you talked about your consumer loans. We see the ratios there on your annual report. On your 2020 annual report, it shows under commercial loans, other. The category says other, at 3.7% outstanding loans by sector. Can you tell this committee what is this other sector valued at $617,830.05 with two borrowers on the books?
I don't have it with me right
Okay,
now.
you
Madam
can get
Chair.
back to us on that.
Yes, please.
All right. On the same report, it also shows 26.4% in tourism sector outstanding loans. Can you tell this committee if any of these 16 loan underwritings valued in total at $4.3 million benefited the CNMI?
4.3. That's the overall, or it's just CNMI? Are we just looking at CNMI or overall?
I'll repeat the question. On the
Sure.
same report, it also shows 26.4% in tourism sector outstanding loans. Can you tell this committee if any of these 16 loan underwritings valued in total at $4.3 million benefited the CNMI?
I don't have the answer at this point.
You can get back to us on
Yes,
that?
please.
On the same question, to services sector valued at $2.6 million with 29 loans. Did any of them benefit the CNMI?
I'd have to come back on that.
Okay, and on the same for manufacturing sector valued at $537,000 with 4 loans on the books. Are any of these commercial real estate loans within the CNMI market?
Again, I'd have to come back, and I hope, Madam Chair, that you can give me a list of questions that I can
We
take
sure
to the
will.
management.
It's on record.
Thank you.
I see fisheries at 0. I know you are a fisherman, right? But it's 0. I'm actually a little bit alarmed that we are surrounded by water. And one of the self-sufficiencies for subsistence living is fishing. As a matter of fact, food stamp coupons is eligible expense to buy fish for consumption and even to buy the equipment for, our citizens to make a living and to also provide food for their families. Can you tell this committee why fisheries is at 0 loan underwriting? And the reason why I ask is because of that. We do have a lot of fishermen. We do have a fishermen association. in the Commonwealth and even on Guam and throughout the region for that matter. But I'm a little bit surprised that the fisheries loan portfolio is at zero. Can you
And it-
explain to us why?
Yes, and because I think that doesn't paint the correct picture with what is obviously going on. We have several consumer loans that were for example, fishing boat or outboard motors that actually contributes to that fishing, or the consumer loan in a certain jurisdiction that would purchase the fishing gears, as you mentioned. So while it's not listed as fishing, it's actually there is loans through the consumer loan where it goes directly into the fisheries industry, and again, it's
But that's the entire loan portfolio of
Yeah,
the bank.
right.
So obviously, whatever sector we're talking about the entire portfolio, the loan portfolio,
Yeah.
whether it's personal or commercial, irregardless. But fisheries is stated as zero. So even if somebody was to walk into the bank and borrow for a fishing enterprise, a business, it's still part of the overall portfolio of the bank, but it's coming in at zero. And if you're stating on the record today that there are some of those kind of transactions, but they're not being classified as fishery, then I wonder where are they classified under? Whether they're housing loan, but they're
Consumer
actually
loan.
fishing ventures. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think transparency is what we're talking about here. I would request for PIDB to provide more details in its loan portfolio so that we can clearly identify the loan transactions and activities so that we can have a better picture of what exactly is PIDB underwriting with respect to its businesses. Thank you. Now, what is the CNMI's loan to capital ratio currently?
When I was asked by the former CEO to join the board of directors, I said I was a fisherman before I got elected into office. So I'm sorry, I won't be able to answer that question. I certainly pass that on to
Okay, all right.
management.
We'll get you all the questions. Also, the annual report states that the CNMI has a total of 13 loans valued at $1.9 million. Earlier, we discussed about a new loan system was launched in 2020 and its reporting capabilities. Can you provide this committee a report of these CNMI sectors that were provided bank funding assistance?
As far as the type of loans, it's listed. I have that, and that's probably as much as we can provide. But you get to see this, and if there's any other clarification, we certainly welcome.
Okay, you can get back to us on that.
Yeah.
Additionally, the CNMI shows a 39% loan delinquency ratio valued at $388,000, 692.14 cents. What is your opinion of this? And has the bank initiated any foreclosures of these 4 delinquent notes?
And the only reason for the large amount is because of that one large.
Can you speak into the microphone? Thank
Sorry.
you.
And the only reason why that's the way it is because that one large mortgage loan or housing loan. And the status is at this point in time, those with that one particular loan, I think the others are already being referred to the attorneys. But the particular loan, we are in the process of referring that to the attorneys.
Actually, the total number of delinquent notes is 4. There are 4 notes on your books that is
And-
delinquent, cumulative total of 388,692.14. So 3 of the notes have already been referred to an attorney for collection, and 1 is pending referral. Is that what you're saying?
I was just suggesting that the reason the number is large is because of that one large loan, but the others, and I'd have to get back to you as far
Okay.
as the actual status. But a lot of this that at some point we charged off will be referred to the attorneys for collection.
Right, we do understand that oftentimes delinquent notes are written off the books, but it's very concerning because these are public funds that every state members agreed to pledge at $1 million each. RMI being the greatest equity shareholder of the bank, and I do understand that people do have difficulty paying back too. But at the same time, we wonder when the acquisition of those assets, let's step back a little bit. The acquisition of the capital, which is public money, to either jumpstart a business, to build a house, to build an apartment complex, or whatever it is. It builds equity for the person, the applicant itself. And if that person becomes delinquent or business becomes delinquent, then I wonder what is the foreclosure of that particular enterprise. Does the bank take it back as an asset so that they could probably send it out to the market for somebody to buy up? Or does this person that is written off, it's a loss on the books of the bank? What happens to them? So those are the questions that I would like answered by the PIDB, considering that the CNMI contributed $1 million, pledged itself to bring in $1 million into the bank and to provide all these kind of products for the community, as you said before, to promote the community, provide financing capital and things like that. I think we need much more transparency and accountability of the people's monies so that we really truly understand if all of these loan portfolios, whether they're being written off, they're delinquent, they're being referred to who, nobody knows.
Well, we do,
But we need-
Madam Chair. No,
yeah.
we actually do have what's called a charge-off. When you refer to
Mhm.
written off, it's called a charge-off. The auditors require us a certain amount of money to be set aside so that the credits go towards those charge-off funds. But it doesn't end there. We then refer to the attorneys, where the attorneys make the collection. And we have been successful in the past, and we continue to work with attorneys to collect that money. So no, when we write it off, it doesn't mean that it's lost.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next question. I'm heading into the end of all my questions here. The report states a total of 216 direct lending loans valued at $12.9 million, with 93 delinquent, or 43% valued at $5 million plus of the direct lending portfolio. Can you tell this committee if any of these direct lending portfolio belongs to current or prior officers of the bank, the CNMI in particular?
Not that I'm aware of, Madam Chair. I want to say no, but
You can get to us on that.
sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm very interested in finding out.
Yeah.
I'm sure the committee too. The 2020 annual report shows there are two non-performing CNMI loans valued at $209,000. Can you tell this committee if these two loans are still in the same status?
One more time, please. Sorry.
The 2020 annual report shows there are two non-performing CNMI loans valued at $209,000.
Okay.
Can you tell this committee if these two loans are still in the same status?
We'll get a more definite response to that question, Madam Chair, because at this point in time, after we've gone through this transition, and we now have a permanent CEO who will be able to describe to you what efforts are being made or what the current status is for those particular loans.
Fair enough. What percentage of the outstanding residential loans valued at $5.2 million is within the CNMI market?
Good question. So I have in the documents that I brought with me a list of those residential with the amount, which you'll be able to see for yourself.
Thank you. And similarly, what percentage of the outstanding consumer loans valued at $778,000 is within the CNMI market?
And I have that as well.
Wonderful. And what is the bank's consumer loan rate?
At this point, the consumer rate is we just recently had to reduce our actual rates in the past of 13% for personal loans. We've recently been told by our attorney from here that I guess there's a usury law that limits the amount of interest to just 12%. So we're actually having to go back and look at all the loans that we've issued in consumer loans, and would have to probably credit those existing loans right now, because it would have been illegal. And that was just an oversight on our part that we recently found out. And so we're going back. So the consumer loan interest rate is at 12%. Our mortgage loan is anywhere from 4 to 7. I mean, I'm sorry, the mortgage loan is about 4 to 7%, and then our commercial loan is at 10%.
And the residential loans?
7%.
7%? And what is, how long is the amortization of the residential loans?
I believe we have gone up to as long as 25 years, maybe some in 30 years. I'm not sure.
And
I'd
commercial?
have to. That is 10 years at the most, but mostly 5 years.
Okay. Now, the report states there are 10 new loans were approved in 2020, valued at $741,000. One of them being in the manufacturing sector, valued at $440,000. Is this approved new loan within the CNMI market?
No, it's not.
Which market is it at? Do you
Guam.
know? Guam?
Yes.
Do you know what's the manufacturing company? What are they manufacturing?
I don't have that answer right now.
Okay, thank you. Fair enough. Now, can you share with the committee why the significant net loss of $2 million of the bank's assets?
Can I get management to respond to that?
Sure. Members, I pretty much exhausted my questions for Mr. Benevente this afternoon. We can go round two. Recognize Representative Corina Magofnia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a few questions and they're not in any particular order. So the first question that I have is, from my understanding at least, is anyone, can anyone apply for these loans?
Absolutely.
Do you have to be an NMD or just
Mm,
just a CNMI resident or just
Just a CNMI resident, yes.
CNMI resident? Okay. And then where or who would they need to contact if they were interested in getting a loan?
So the current system is that you would access the website in Guam in the bank, and download the application, fill it out, and send it back to Guam. And that's how it's been done for years now.
Would you
And
happen to have the website address?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay.
Get it.
Can you provide that to us so that we can share it to the public in case
Sure.
they're interested? Thank you. And how much, as of 12/31/2021, how much is still available for loans?
I think that's a cash flow question, but as we speak, repayments, right, of to those loans are coming in, and so it just varies at a different time, and I can't give you that answer right now. I think the management should be able to provide that.
Got it.
It'll be an average because of the fact that it really, as it comes in, we
Sure.
package a loan and loan it up.
Do you guys receive monthly or quarterly financial reports that tells you what has been collected and what is available and things of that nature?
Yes, we do, Congresswoman. We actually discuss that at every quarterly meeting.
Okay. Is that information accessible to the public so that they know, what's available to them?
I think once adopted in the following meeting, then it becomes public document. Yeah.
And when it becomes public, do you guys publish it out on the media or on the website, or how do you guys communicate that information to the public?
I don't think that we've done that in the past, but the information is certainly available, and so I don't think they would have
Okay,
done
I
that.
would highly recommend that you guys take the initiative and the effort to make the information available to the people without asking for it, just because it is public funds that's being used to
Sure,
fund this
sure.
bank. Next question is, you talked about the charge-off accounts, and do these charge-off accounts get reported to the credit bureau?
I believe so, but I think that's something that management can
Okay,
respond.
can you
as
please
well.
confirm?
Yes.
Because it would be just it would be an advantage to the bank,
Sure.
right? If these kinds of situations are reported to the credit bureau, it's a deterrent for the applicants to go delinquent on their accounts because it affects their credit score. So if you guys are not doing that, or if the bank is not doing that, I highly recommend that you guys do that.
I'm pretty sure that we do, only because we also look at that as well in processing applications, but I'll have to confirm that
Okay.
with management.
Perfect. And then, so going back to the report that the Department of Finance had provided Madam Chair, with regards to the contribution, do you know where the funding source is coming from? When these contributions were made, were they coming from the general fund account or?
I believe it was a general fund.
So it's
I was in the
general account.
legislature at the time, and I believe
Okay.
all of it is from the general fund.
And so therefore it's public funds that
Yes.
are funding these contributions. And earlier on, you had mentioned that for confidential purposes, you were not able to disclose the commercial loans or the residential loans because of that. And correct me if I'm wrong, legal counsel, but if it's funded by public funds, don't the public have the right to know who these people are that are taking out loans from the bank?
I'd have to do additional research on what specific disclosure provisions will be applicable.
Okay. I mean, because if somebody was to do an OGA, right? I mean, these are public funds being used to fund the bank. I would think that if an OGA was submitted to the bank to provide the list of who these loan applicants are, that they would be able to get that information. At least that's my assumption, based on the definition of public funds.
So the Pacific Islands Development Bank, according to the feasibility study that predated its creation in the late 80s, says that its provisions are supposed to be governed by international law and that it's a joint creation of the various jurisdictions, some of which are sovereign states and some of which are not sovereign states. So it's not an instrumentality of the CNMI government for purposes of the OGA, at least arguably. But I mean, the question has also been raised whether it constitutes an instrumentality of the CNMI government for purposes of the constitutional prohibition on holding board memberships simultaneously with elected office. I would argue that for purposes of both of those issues, it's not an instrumentality of the CNMI government.
All right. Thank you, Council. And then looking at the financial statements for under statements of operations years ended December 31st, 2020 and 2019, would you happen to know what the professional fees are? What those are? There was an increase of 39,000 from 2019 to 2020.
The fees, professional services that we get is annually would be limited to the audit reports. That is done independently, of course. Special services, updating the management policies that's reviewed by certain organizations or private organization. That's different. So I'm not sure.
Can you
which
get a
ones
list
those-
of? Can you get a list
Sure,
for us on
I'm
what
sure
the
we can. Yeah.
what kind of professional services are? Because a $39,000 increase is quite significant, I feel, and so we would appreciate if we could get
Sure.
a more descriptive description of what falls under professional service. And do the legal fees fall under these?
That's a
as
good
well?
question, and I think it may have been, but again,
Okay.
I'd have to come back and have management respond to that.
Not a problem. Also, under miscellaneous, it's still under operating expenses, miscellaneous. Would you happen to know what those miscellaneous expenses would be?
No, not off the bat. I would have to ask
Okay,
management.
yeah, it's always an interesting item to ask whenever you see other
Yeah.
or miscellaneous. So
Right.
I'm just curious
Right.
what that
What they are.
$20,000 is
Yeah.
under miscellaneous. Aside from that, I think that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Benavente.
Representative Magofnia. Recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you again, Chair. Quick question. How is the chairman of the board of governors and the directors get paid, or do they get paid?
No pay. No, we don't get paid at all. Of course, until recently, where we meet virtually, including the Board of Governors and the Board of Directors, when they do fund the travel expense that takes us to those different jurisdictions, and that's all that we get. Basically, per
Isn't
diem
there
with-
a certain percentage in the well, the bank account that is used actually for operations, salary,
Sure.
and all that? So you guys don't get paid at all.
Not at all.
Wow, I'll hire you. Thank you for your service. So hopefully we see a lot more of this. But yeah, very interesting. I've never heard of this till now. There's a lot to read into this. Maybe I'll get smarter. But this is good. Thank you, Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Recognize Representative Karina.
So in line with the travel, I see that under the statement of operations, conference and travel, there was a significant drop in travel expenses from $153,000 to just $15,000. And so I was curious, do the travel expenses come out of the $1 million? That where do these expenses get?
It's part of the overall operation expense.
Okay.
So of course, as the repayments come in, we do have our budget that we follow every year, and those funds are set aside for the purpose of the budget that was adopted. And so, office space, rental, utilities, all the other expenses in the management of this of our office, including travel. And travel's not limited to board meetings. We also have management as well as staff to travel to follow up on certain applications, certain clients in the different jurisdiction. It's tough to manage because the clients are all over the Micronesia, and so it does get expensive. We certainly have cut a lot of those expenses
Yes.
because of the virtual meeting.
Yes. Is that something that you guys would consider going forward, since you guys are saving significantly?
And I want to say yes, right? But at the same time, one of the reasons why we decided on alternating and visiting all our members' jurisdiction is we continue to advocate and push for additional capitalization. And I think visiting the entities actually helps us, not just in meetings with the elected leaders there, but meetings with our customers and our clients. So it does help, I believe, personally. Believe that I enjoy traveling myself, but I believe it does contribute and helps
It helps
the
build
bank.
that
Yes.
relationship, right?
Yes.
I'm just curious, on a under normal circumstances pre-COVID, what's the budget like for travel for the CNMI? I'm curious.
So the CNMI doesn't actually pay any of this, right? I mean, it's the PIDB in Guam that pays for, whether it's our chairman or governor to travel to a Board of Governors meeting in Guam or in Palau, or my travel. Actually, it's not just the governor. So the Board of Directors meeting would be the two members Board of the Governors. So both the governor as well as Representative J.P. Sablan now. So none of that is being paid out of CNMI.
Right, but the CNMI's portion of the travel, how much are we looking
Well,
at?
I'm not sure. It varies in the different location. We like to think that it's the bank saves money when we travel to which one's our cheapest? I think it's Guam, but then it gets pretty expensive when we're meeting in RMI in Majuro or in Ibay for CADA. So it varies in the different locations where we have those meetings.
Okay,
I'm not sure what
I'm
that
just like
amount is.
trying to get an amount, so
Yeah.
like the range. So maybe
Yeah.
between 10 to 20, between 10,000 to 20,000. Like what's the
I mean, it pays for travel, per diem,
right?
and that's it. Vehicle in some cases, but we like to go ahead and even though there's 7-8 of us that attended, and just to get two vehicles, to cut costs and share the vehicle. So that's how we do that in the bank for many years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Karina. Anybody online? Rep Tina, any last question? Rep Denke? Okay, I think that concludes our questions. Short recess, please. our meeting with Mr. Diego Benavente with the Pacific Island Development Bank. Moving right along on item number 7 on the agenda under announcements. Members, I do not have any announcements this afternoon. And on the last item on the agenda for the adjournment, may I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting? It has been moved and seconded. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you very much, members. Have a good weekend.